Hello, this is Phil Batista with the Rising Stars Planning Committee, and I'd like to welcome Al Ramirez today as one of our speakers. He's a featured speaker at the conference, and if you're in Mexico, you may have heard him referred to, introduced as Ingeniero Alberto Ramirez. Al, welcome today.
Well, thank you, Phil. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with the Rising Stars, and I'm looking forward to our presentation later today.
Absolutely. Al, so you are, by definition, you are a consultant, okay? And a lot of these folks in our audience have not really had experience with consultants. It's a career path that has taken you through, starting and selling multiple companies. You've held the positions of CEO, COO, vice president. You've formed sales organizations. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to become a consultant and your career path that took you to where you are today across borders of multiple countries and multiple companies and how they interface. Tell us about that career path, if you will.
Well, thank you, Phil. I appreciate the introduction. And again, thank you to IEEE Rising Stars for this opportunity. So basically, I'm an engineer, right? Graduated from college, went to work for a small company in Tucson, Arizona. And there we designed integrated circuits and had a great time. Then it was sold to TI, Texas Instruments. Went to work for IBM. Started off with IBM as a junior engineer, worked my way up to become a senior engineer, got tired of decisions being made outside of my realm. So it was at that point I said, you know what, I'm going into management. So I did. I'm in the research and development organization. So grew up through that, ended up having around, led 400 people internationally and with a profit loss responsibility of around $800 million worldwide. So did that, was obviously having a good time doing that, but I saw a major black hole for me. I'd never been in front of customers. I kind of was, but I was brought in with an entourage of people. So what occurred here is after a few years, I was allowed to transfer from research and development into sales. And did that. I got in there and I did that for 4 years, grew up, did 100% clubs, golden circle, that kind of good stuff. So did well. But at that point, I was offered a position as a VP of a software company for ERP implementation. So I had worldwide implementation services for this company. We grew like crazy. I was having a blast. And then the company was sold. Quite frankly, I wish it hadn't because I was having a great time doing that work. So anyway, got the company sold, but I decided to go back to a first love. All right. And that first love is I'm a thesis away from a biomedical engineering master's degree. Wow. And so I decided to create two companies, one in the US and one in Mexico, where we set up surgical suites, intensive care units, and radiology suites. Did that for a decade and a half, had a great time, had a great bunch of people working with me and so forth. But I will share one thing that I was blessed in that I got involved in a project where it was a Mexican border town where the premature infant mortality rates were running between 26 and 24%. And so that's 1 out of every 4. It was heartbreaking to see what was going on. The babies would be born in this Mexican town, small, they didn't have the facilities, be flipped over to the US side, another small US town. They don't have the facilities. Then the baby was shipped over to Tucson, Arizona. And by then we'd lost the golden hour and the babies would die. So we got together with the 2 largest hospitals in Tucson, the University Medical Center, Tucson Medical Center, and also the health department of both the state of Sonora, Mexico, and also the government of Mexico from Mexico City. Put together a team, did a lot of volunteer work. Long and the short of it is, after a 2-year period, we were able to reduce that mortality rate of 26% down to 2 to 4%. Incredibly rewarding. I'll tell you, I learned so many lessons of how things operate and so forth. So anyway, that's a highlight from my 2 companies. It was at that point I'd done this work for now about a decade and a half and said, you know what, I'm going to sell them. I did, and I'm going to retire. And I failed. I failed really well.
You failed at retirement. Did you just say you failed at retirement?
I failed at retirement, absolutely. And so what ended up occurring is, excuse me, at that point, I decided to move to San Diego. I was in Tucson, Arizona. I always wanted to live here, so I moved down here. And at that point, started, just looking around, seeing what was available. This is a biotech mecca in San Diego County. I became a COO for a small biotech company, did that for 4 or 5 years, and that was very successful, got them well into the black, had a great time, learned a tremendous amount about the biotech industry. And it was at that point I said, you know what, I'm going to take it easy again. And you know what, I got bored. Okay. And so what happened here is now I'm getting definitely into the consulting environment. I'm presently a project manager for an ERP implementation with a company that's got 11 manufacturing sites across 4 countries in 2 different languages.
Wow.
So again, I'm having a great time doing this work. And oh, by the way, I'm also in the IEEE Career and Professional Development Committee. And that's what what we'll be talking about sometime today, where we're going to be drawing the analogy between having your own company, okay, or having a company and what's required to be a successful company to what's required to have a successful career. And in fact, it's called your career as a business enterprise. So anyway, Phil, that's in brief who I am.
Well, now, so you say your session today is on the commonality between your different jobs, the different companies that you work. Tell us a little bit more about that as it leads up to your session today, Al.
Oh, okay, well, good. So what's occurring right now in today's career environment is that people will change their career every 5 to 7 years. That's per their life, okay? The other thing that's occurring here, especially here in California, is people change jobs every 3 to 5 years. So what's the common point on that one? Well, one of the things here is I look at IEEE as an organization. It's got a tremendous amount of things to offer, right? But you start to say, well, where's the common point? Where's the commonality pieces of it? Well, as you start to look at, well, how does a business operate? Well, a business operates and requires 7 fundamental departments, right? And what are they? Well, it's your executive department, it's your finance department, it's your production, et cetera, right? Well, it turns out that the analogy and the parallelism that goes on between having a successful company and a successful career are massive. So at that point, no. So now you get to have your career as a business enterprise. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Very excited about doing this.
Well, and a lot of folks that are professionals associate who they are with what they do. And it's a common occurrence. But in reality, you are what you have become, and you just happen to do what you do at that time for your employment, right? And so I think it's a difficult thing to kind of separate who you are with what you do. And I'm across situations where people have been fired from a company, and their first thing is, I got to get back into that company. I got to get back in the company. And it's like, why? Well, because I work at that. That's who I am. I'm this person at that company. I said, no, you are an engineer. You are a professional. You have these particular skills. Look for a company that you can use your skills and your experience to help further your career. Is that something that you see in the studies that you're talking about in this development with the IEEE?
Absolutely. You're spot on, Phil. The thing that's occurring here is who you are is not what you happen to be doing, right? I used to design integrated circuits, right? Well, I'm not an integrated circuit. I mean, I'm being silly in the whole thing here. But if you start looking at kind of where my career has been and what I've been able to do, I've started off as an engineer, high-level manager, VP, founder, and now I'm a consultant, right? And I'm having a good time. So what's consistent throughout that? Well, I learned some key lessons as I was going through this. One was getting to meet people, getting to have a different point of view, understanding where they're coming from, having empathy, becoming more socially aware. These are key for me lessons that I learned. In fact, when I was at IBM, I'll kind of blow my own horn here a little bit. I was a pretty damn good engineer, right? And I was reviewing other people's designs. And by the way, I was brutal. It was not the right thing to do. I had some key mentors that actually took me aside and said, Al, you really got to get the other person's point of view. And I struggled with that because I've got so much work to do. I don't have time to do this stuff. Yeah. So the thing here is, but wait a minute, this other individual, and one person in particular told me something that just nailed me. He said, you never know when you're going to need that other person. kind of a selfish point of view. But you know what? That point of view has helped me so much throughout my career. And in fact, so much in getting to quote, be allowed to help other people. And so that has been a driving force in particular for my career path. It's actually a life path that you're talking about.
Well, you say you're blessed. I mean, it is a privilege, and I think it's a privilege to be able to help other people. And, I've been told, to look at something through the other person's eyes. When you want to deliver a message, you ask yourself, why do I want to deliver this message? Is it to make me feel better? Is it to deliver a point? Is it a technical reason that I'm going to give this particular criticism? Is it good or bad? And how is that person going to receive it? And what's it going to do for them? Now, you've had some great mentors. Tell us about some of your great mentors that you've experienced over your career.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing here is, this has almost become a cliche, but in your sales world, right, you ask the question, well, how can I make my customer successful, right? The good sales guys, that's their point of view. I have to make them. Well, I'm an engineer. I'm starting off with a small or big company. How am I going to make my boss successful? How is he rated? How is he promoted? And by the way, that's making your boss successful. And guess what happens throughout that? It gets you to be successful. The mentors that I've had, boy, I'll tell you, I'm not going to mention last names, but there's two in particular. They're both named Jim. Okay. One of those guys actually started off as a technician, worked his way up, and then became an engineer, just an outstanding engineer. Another one was the one that actually taught me about how to manage and so forth. So I've been super blessed. Again, I don't want to get into other people's personal lives, but I'll tell you, those guys, they took the point of view of, okay, I'm looking, how can I help Al? And I'll tell you, that has been a massive blessing to me. And you look for opportunities to offer that same sort of stuff to others.
That's amazing. Well, and also too, you're leaving a great legacy with the people that you've been able to help. My mentor of 40 years has helped countless other people and companies, and form their careers, form their companies, develop their personalities. And when you turn your focus to help other people, it's a natural occurrence that it comes back to help you. And if that's your goal, it's kind of a selfish goal. But I mean, if you can turn that around and look to help other people, and as you say, become more socially aware of others around you and how to help promote them, the return on investment that you get from that is something that you can't pay for. You can't actually buy that.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I'll tell you that I'm not trying to take away the fact that you got to have a career. You got to make money. You got to pay the bills. You got to put food on the table, right? So you got to do all that sort of stuff. But the scenario here is what really drives you. One of the things that we're not going to talk about specifically in today's presentation, but it's how do you create your ideal scene? It sounds like a straightforward question, but boy, I'll tell you, it is so difficult to answer because, well, relative to what? What do I talk about? Where is it that I want to head? How do I round myself out? Where do I want to be? And so that question is really an executive department question. You're now the CEO of your business. You.
Absolutely. We've got a couple of minutes left here. Tell me about your concern and your concept of becoming more socially aware, Al.
Well, I've been able to play around with, I call it playing, all right, not to make it any less, but you got to enjoy yourself. You got to enjoy the things you're doing, and that's when you're going to do your best work. That's fundamental. Okay, so the thing here is when you start looking at what is it that you can offer, and I'll tell you, you guys can offer a tremendous amount. You start looking at, well, what areas of expertise can I have, right? And at that point, you start looking at things like, okay, what gets you excited? Is it the environment? Is it helping kids out in school? Whatever that happens to be, but all of a sudden now, that's giving. And oh, by the way, a key piece of that, now sounds selfish, I'm going to be upfront. Key piece of that is you're marketing yourself. People are going to see you. This person really is good. They're doing a great job. I want to help promote this person, this type of individual. So, you know, you talk about altruism, but you don't get a bigger return on investment than doing that kind of activity. So, Phil,
That's absolutely wonderful. And, you know, and it's, I think it's kind of, it's great that you've had some great mentors and that you willingly choose to be a great mentor for others. Thank you so much, Al. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to your session today. If you haven't had a chance, catch Al's session today at the Rising Stars Conference. This is Phil Batista with Al Ramirez. Thank you, Al. I appreciate it.
thank you very much, Phil.
You bet.